Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or good night, depending on where you are in the world today. It is a pleasure to be connected with you today. Welcome and thank you for being part of the GEF Global Biodiversity Framework Early Action Support Project. Welcome to this fifth webinar in our series of capacity building, national target alignment, tools and technical support. Today, we will introduce the CBD quick guides to the 2030 targets. We will also explore the DART applications and different types of rapid target alignment support. My name is Cassandra Llosa. I think most of you know me from the past sessions. I'm a stakeholder engagement analyst at UNDP, and I coordinate the implementation of the project's capacity building offerings like this webinar. We're likely all Zoom experts now, but there are some brief reminders just in case. If you have technical issues, to help you resolve them, send a private Zoom message to Alina Klimantovic. She's dropping her email contact in the chat. Please do not use the group chat to do not be distracted on that. Well, in general, your microphones will be muted to help ensure our speakers can be heard clearly. We encourage your participants anyway to, if you have questions, to raise your hand during the session or type your questions in the Q&A box in the chat that we have, right? Finally, we have a webinar webpage where you can access today's presentation and the recordings. We will also share them by email after the series concludes. And also, my colleague Alina is dropping the link in the chat to have access to the past webinar sessions. If you are interested to navigate in the NBSAP forum webpage, my colleague Alina is dropping the link in the chat as well. Here is today's agenda in the next slide. Yeah, great. So first, we will have a brief overview of the GBF Early Action Support Guidance on aligning national biodiversity targets with the GBF and related decisions that will be given by Leah Phillips, who is Senior Biodiversity Policy Coordinator at UNDP. Then we will have a presentation about the CBD quick guides on 2030 targets and other support from CBD, who will be given by Kirian Mooney, Program Assistant at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the CBD, well known by the CBD. So the third presentation, our very flash presentation, sounds a lot, but it will be a flash presentation introductions to the subject, will be very dynamic session. And the third one is a data reporting tool for MEAS, which is the DART and other support from UNEP. That will be given by Eric Windmar, who is connected today, and also Diane Claimy from his team is here to solve some doubts at the end when we have this Q&A session. Eric is an expert, DART expert in environmental treaties program. He works also in the MEAS cooperation and synergies, environmental governance and conventions branch at the law division in UNEP. Finally, we are going to have a presentation that is titled the NBSAP Target Assessment Tool, given by Leah Phillips, Senior Biodiversity Policy Coordinator at UNDP. So remember that at the end of their presentations, we'll have a Q&A session. That's the spirit of the webinars, to having the experts online, to have this open discussion with them, and also to have other countries that are experiencing the same as you. So take advantage of that. Don't be shy today, please. So let's start with a brief overview of the GBF Early Action Support Guidance, aligning national biodiversity targets with the GBF and related decisions. This guidance document will be released at the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice, well known as SABSTA. SABSTA 25 in Nairobi. I will give you more information at the end of this session. And it's the final stages of review, and it's co-authored by the Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the UNDP, UNEP, and WCMC, and will be given by Leah Phillips. So Leah, you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. Here, let me get my camera on so you're not just hearing a little ghost over here. Anyways, it's so great to see you this morning. Really looking forward to talking to you about all the potential that we have here for alignment with the new framework. So I think we can go to this next slide, but just as a reminder, component 1 of the EAS project focuses on this work around target alignment. And so we'd like to dig into it a little bit deeper today. So as many of you are aware, and our CBD colleagues can attest to, the CBD aims to guide action to conserve biodiversity, promote the sustainable development of its components, and ensure the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. And as many of us also remember, at COP15, countries adopted the Global Biodiversity Framework as part of decisions to put nature on a path to recovery by 2030 and to live in harmony with nature by 2050. Next slide. So, NBSAPs are the main instrument for implementing the CBD at the national level. I'd like to focus in today on a bit on Decision 15.6, taken at COP15, entitled Mechanisms for Planning, Monitoring, Reporting, and Review, which requests parties to revise or update their NBSAPs in alignment with the GBF by COP16. As we know, that's going to happen next year at the end of the year. And as the decision states, if your government is not in a position to submit its revised NBSAPs by that time, you're requested to communicate your national targets reflecting as applicable the Global Biodiversity Framework, and you'll be able to submit those and other information requested in Annex 1 of Decision 15.6 via the CBD's online reporting tool. Next slide. And in addition, just to get a little more background in what alignment means, it's not just alignment between the text necessarily, but countries are also encouraged to consider implementation gaps, existing goals, targets, indicators, the effectiveness of past actions and targets, monitoring systems, including data, knowledge gaps, systems, sectoral and cross-sectoral policies, finance, and other means of implementation, and an assessment of how stakeholders, including Indigenous peoples, local communities, women, and youth, were involved in the revision and implementation. Okay, so next slide. And of course, the reason why we're all here is because the EAS project is providing support around this decision, as well as alignment more generally, and providing detailed guidance that we hope can assist countries in reviewing their national targets for their subsequent update and revision for alignment with the Global Biodiversity Framework and related decisions. So on this slide, we have a potential pathway that we think could be applicable for many countries when it comes to conducting this assessment. So first, we have a preliminary assessment of existing national biodiversity targets. And now it could even include those within the NBSAPs and other policies that just relate to biodiversity. Identification of relevant sectors, government agencies, and stakeholder groups, stakeholder engagement to assess the alignment, revision and update of national targets, determination of indicators and implementing groups, collection and reporting information requested in Annex 1 of Decision 15.6, and finally, planning steps towards updating or revising NBSAP. And just so it's a little bit more helpful at the end of this presentation, I will drop the link to Decision 15.6 on monitoring, so we all have it handy. Okay, next slide. So The first step of this process can be to conduct a preliminary assessment, such as a desk review of existing national biodiversity goals and targets for alignment with the global biodiversity framework. And this can include first familiarizing yourselves or the expert group with COP15 decisions, collecting the most updated national biodiversity targets. I'm sure many of you have those handy, but they're also available on the CBD website there's a Find Targets tab, which I've used and enjoy. Then we have identifying national policies related to biodiversity that have national targets that could be considered in the alignment process. And again, these are targets potentially within sectoral or development plans and commitments under other multilateral environmental agreements. And finally, this process could also include cross-checking, of course, the current national biodiversity targets with the global goals and targets in order to gain a preliminary understanding of alignments and gaps. And this can also help us identify stakeholders, which is the next slide. Okay, so I'd like to take, thank you. So I take a little pause and do a little quote of the GBF. And it says that, and I like this quote, that this is a framework for the whole of government and whole of society. Its success requires political will and recognition at the highest level of government, and it also relies on action and cooperation at all levels of government and by all actors of society. By now, many of you are familiar with this whole of government and whole of society approach, and hopefully are looking to determine how to undertake it for this process. So this next step is to identify relevant sectors, government agencies, and stakeholders who can engage in this work. Some potential sub-steps could include developing a stakeholder engagement plan, reviewing the preliminary assessment of targets and determining stakeholders that should be engaged around each goal and target based on their expertise and how they're affected by those goals and targets potentially, develop engagement mechanisms and ensuring the mobilization of key groups. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, you have an opportunity to consider if information on commitments from non-state actors may also be a useful source of information. Okay, we can hop to the next slide. So to dig into the next, to dig into these types of stakeholders that might be possible to engage, on this slide, you can see the many groups that Decision 15.6 points out could be included in the coordination mechanism, including members of government, civil society, and private sector. So the next step, and we can go to the next slide, thank you, is to bring together these relevant stakeholders to assess the preliminary review of targets and undergo a broader assessment of alignment between national and global targets, enabling each of these stakeholders to bring in their knowledge and points of view. Some sub-steps here can include reviewing the preliminary analysis, undergoing a more comprehensive assessment of alignment between global and national targets, including considerations of indicators, scope, ambition, timeframes, assessing the status of current national targets to determine implementation gaps, including financial resources, technical and scientific cooperation, and capacity building. And at this stage, stakeholders can also bring forth non-state actor commitments if the country is comfortable or interested in using them. And the next slide, based on this assessment, countries can revise or update national targets as needed to ensure better alignment. So some sub-steps are, and we'll talk about this later with our colleagues from the CBD, but there's an opportunity to review the guiding questions and information in the CBD quick guides if you haven't already by this point in the process, and review the guiding questions in order to consider assessment more broadly. And then you can also assess, look back at the targets and begin to develop or update national targets in order to take into account what you've discovered in addition to the national context, priorities, and capacities. And on the next slide, we have some information from the decision about these new targets. It's recommended that they are aligned, of course, but also consistent with the goals and targets of other multilateral environmental agreements, that they can be specific, measurable, costed, spatially explicit where appropriate, and accountable, meaning it's clear who will be implementing them. Next slide. So the fourth step is to complete the CBD template for submission of national targets in Annex 1 of Decision 15.6. This, the requested information not only pertains to the targets, but also the degree of alignment, whether that's low, medium, or high, policy measures to achieve the target, indicators to monitor it, non-state actor commitments, if interested, and means of implementation. And other steps are submitting the updated national targets and information by COP16, and keeping in mind the option to resubmit or update national targets and related information as discussions around NBSAP alignment continue. Next slide. Soon, the CBD online reporting tool, which I mentioned earlier, will include area for countries to submit their national biodiversity targets and related information. Additionally, countries can submit their full NBSAPs as well as other documents on the Clearinghouse Mechanism portal, which many of you are familiar with. This provides a dashboard summary for countries to visualize the progress towards each of the national targets and the framework on an ongoing basis. Next slide. And then the last step is to plan for updating and revising NBSAPs. And so this can include assessing capacity and resources to implement them, developing or updating actions, policies, programs, creating or updating capacity development, finance, and monitoring plans and including them as part of the NBSAP, finalizing NBSAPs and adopting them as policy instruments, and submitting the revised NBSAPs to the Secretariat. Next slide. So by October 2023, this year, our agencies, the CBD, UNDP, UNEP, we will release a publication on the same theme of this presentation today. And we hope it will elaborate on the guidance that we provided and be useful for countries. It will be shared directly and also through NBSAP Forum. So we'll make sure it's available. And we look forward to engaging with you more about this subject. Okay, so that wraps up the presentation, I suppose, and the conversation. I hope it was informative, and over to you, Cassandra.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leah, for this presentation. So Leah is here with us, with also some colleagues from the Early Action Support Project who can solve some of your doubts. Also are here connected our colleagues from CBD and UNEP. If you have any question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat. Otherwise, there's no problem. We will have at the end a Q&A session where we can discuss further about this guidance. Looks like so far there are no questions. Leah, if that's okay for you, we can leave a couple of those for the Q&A session.
Absolutely. And I'm sure many of the questions you might have will also be cleared up by the following presentations. And I dropped the decision in the chat. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Leah. And also we will include that in the webinar webpage along with the useful resources. So we will have the next presentation on CBD quick guides on 2030 targets, and other support from CBD given by Kieran Mooney, Program Assistant at the CBD. So over to you, Kieran.
Great, thank you so much, Cassandra. I appreciate the introduction. And actually, Leah, just in her presentation earlier, actually referred to these quick guides. So I think it follows well, and hopefully I can help to sort of clarify a bit or popularize what's in this tool that we've developed. So next slide, please. So as Leah just mentioned, so I won't dwell on this, but their countries are in this process right now of updating their NBSAPs and their targets, and we recognize that that's really a big task. And it's, when you start looking across the framework and you're looking at those 23 targets in particular, there's a lot of stuff in there that can be unpacked. So really the purpose of the quick guides is really to be a bit of a first step or a resource that countries can use when they're starting to think through this process, and maybe they're looking at a target and they don't even really know where to start or what types of questions or issues they might want to be considering. Next slide, please. So as I said, the quick guides aren't aren't meant to be like sort of a really an in-depth thing. They're really meant to provide a quick overview of the targets. They're meant to identify what some of the main elements are of the targets and to start unpacking what those might mean in order to enable, consultations, processes of national target setting and implementation. So it's really a starting point, I think, of a bigger process. As I said, they're also meant to complement other resource and guidance materials. So by design, they're relatively short, and they're really meant as a gateway to other types of resources that are available. Lastly, and I think this is an important point, nothing in these quick guides is obviously meant to reinterpret what's in Decision 15.4. In the process of drafting the guides, to keep them short, obviously we sort of have to truncate some of the wording here and there, but that should not be taken to mean that this is a reinterpretation of the decision. The decision remains, as it was negotiated. Next slide, please. So the quick guides have a number of sections. So and it's the same pattern for every single target. So we've really tried to apply a template. So if you look at one target, you'll see the same types of information repeated throughout the guides. So the first section is looking at, why are these targets important and trying to put them in a bit of a broader context. The next part of the guides looks at the different elements of the target and tries to sort of explain what those could mean in a national context in sort of more general or more of a narrative way. The next section, Section C, looks at links to other elements of the framework. So it starts to draw out some of the connections between the targets, because I'm sure, as many of you have noted, a lot of these targets are interconnected, and it's very difficult to see how some can be reached without reaching others. So in that section, we start to sort of identify these different linkages that countries may want to be aware of or to take into account in their target setting processes. And then also we point to other links to other frameworks. So, the SDGs, of course, but also to other agreements or processes under other relevant MEAs. The next section looks at indicators. So these are the indicators that have been identified in the monitoring framework. And this section will be further developed. There's, as probably most of you are aware, there's a process ongoing to finalize the monitoring framework, which includes an indicators ATEG, and that group is working. So this section will be updated as the discussions advance. And then lastly, there's a link to relevant resources. And this is really what I was referring to as these guides being a bit of a gateway to other resources. So we've tried to do a very short curation of what some of the resources are that are available that speak to the specific targets and try to put those together. So if you are having challenges sort of wrapping your heads around one target or an issue in a target, there's at least some additional resources that we can sort of point towards. Next slide, please. So where you can find them, they're actually right on the GBF page on the CBD's website itself. So if you go to that page, you'll see that for each target, and that's shown on the right-hand bar menu there in red, if you click on those, you'll actually go to all this detailed information. So it's already structured by the specific target it refers to. Next slide, please. And then this is just what it looks like. So it's very simple. It's meant to be very sort of accessible. It's simply just a set of drop-down menus that open up as you go through. So you don't actually even have to read all the text of the quick guide. If you want to just jump right to indicators, you can do that. So it's really, as I said, we've tried to break down the very sizable task of developing national targets into more sort of bite-sized chunks to deal with. Next slide, please. So the next step, and I think this is something that I think is quite important or that I wanted to flag, is that these guides are really meant to be supportive of the processes that you're engaging with. So if you're using them and you discover that you think something is missing or something is not quite right, or there's other resources that could be added, please do let us know. So you can do that by writing directly to the Secretariat, and we'll take those points into account. So we're not envisioning these guides are sort of static and they won't change, but we're hoping that they're going to be more as sort of living documents that we will update periodically over the implementation period of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, to respond to the needs or the questions that emerge. The last point I'll make is if you go on those web pages now, you'll notice that they're all in English. There is a process ongoing to have them translated into all the other UN languages as well. However, we wanted to get the English version sort of more or less stable before we engage that, just so that we didn't, waste resources and cause confusion by having, multiple different language versions floating around. So that is underway. Next slide, please. So, I mean, actually, I think really that's really all I wanted to say is just in part to, to flag that this is a resource that is available. If I'd be very keen to, to hear if any of you have looked at them and how you found them, or if you haven't had a chance to look at them yet, I would encourage you to do so. And please do let us know if you have any, issues or concerns or ideas for how they can be improved, because, the objective of this type of activity really is to support countries, at least now initially in this target setting phase that they're in, which is obviously very important. And, we recognize it's a pretty, it's a lot of work to do in a not too long amount of time. So we want to try and, be as helpful and facilitative as we can to that process. So I'll stop there, Cassandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kieran, for this presentation. So what about if as an icebreaker, I have the reaction of participants in the bar that you can find in the bottom of your screen. You have the option of reactions. So there you can, I will do one. You can clap or you can thumbs up if you already seen these resources before. So I have some reactions. Yeah, we have one, but I think that you are cheating, Leah. You already see this resource, but you're great. We have also Path. I hope that I'm spelling right your name. So also Path already saw this resource, Kieran, but the rest of participants, we have around 20 participants that do not see the resource. So as you ask, I have not heard about this, very looking forward to engage. Tom said that. So I think it's a good opportunity to know and as you said, to double your efforts, right? To do the dissemination of this information. So the rest, I don't know if we have some reactions, because only 2 participants have a reaction of seeing the resources, and then some of the team of the early action support team, which I will not count it as. So I think, well, that's a great exercise. I think that we are breaking the ice here too, and I'm not alone in the session. At least I have the Tommy reaction and also Pat. So thank you so much. Thank you, Kieran. I think that if there are questions for his presentation, please raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat. Otherwise, we can have some further discussion in the Q&A, if that's okay for you, Kieran. And also, as you can see, all the presentations are related. So let's see if after having the whole picture will be great. Yeah, Lauren is saying, I haven't seen these quick guides as yet. This should be useful for communications of the GBF targets to key stakeholders. Yeah, that's a positive comment from Lauren for you to take into consideration, Kieran. Thank you, Lauren, for the comments. So I think that we can continue with our next presentation on data reporting tool for multilateral environmental agreements. That's the MEAS, and which is from the DART, and other support from UNEP that will be given by Eric Whitmar, who is a DART expert, environmental treaties program, multilateral environmental agreements, cooperation and synergies, environmental governance and conventions branch at the law division at UNEP. I hope that I said right the title, Eric. So over to you, Eric.
Yes, thank you very much, Cassandra. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. A very warm welcome also from my side to this webinar. I'm joining you from Switzerland. It's very early in the morning, so please, excuse my voice, which is not quite at the top of it. Okay, today I have the pleasure to introduce you to briefly introduce you the data reporting tool for MEAs, the DART. I will give you an overview on why the tool was developed, how the tool works, and then especially have a focus on how the tool can support you in develop early actions for the implementation of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Next slide. Yes, as said by previous speakers, the GBF was adopted by the CBD COP in last December. Next. And the GBF is, next please. The GBF is not only a tool or a framework which is important for the CBD, but it is a global framework to which other conventions, other organizations and processes like the SDGs will have to contribute. Next. At the national level, this will be also challenging in two terms. The first term is that you will need to also include considerations not only for the CBD but also for the Ramsar CITES Convention into the revision of your NBSAPs as those the COPs of those conventions requested their parties. And the second challenge will be, of course, you will have to report. You will have to report to all the conventions, including the CBD. Next. This situation is not new. We had the same situation with the Aichi targets, which were relevant for a series of conventions, like the CMS CITES, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources, and so on. So this reporting of the same kind of information to multiple conventions was the base to start the development of the DART. Next slide. So with the DART, what we aim is to provide another approach to national reporting, to another approach to knowledge management for the review for the reporting on the various conventions. What we propose with DART is to have one digital space where all the experts at national level can share their information relevant for the implementation of conventions. This digital place is secure, meaning that it is maintained according to up-to-date security levels at the UN server in Geneva. It is private. This means that only people who have a login to your national working space can log in. So no secretariat, no other organization can access your information that you included in the data reporting tool for MEAs. So, and within this space, okay, you can share, you can organize your knowledge according to multiple targets, and this will in the end facilitate to find the information you need for future reporting under multiple conventions. Next. So here we have the brief, in brief, the aims of the DART, and I think next and next. And I think the important thing about DART is that to realize that DART is a tool for knowledge management. It's not only data management, as the name may suggest, it's really a tool for knowledge management at the national level. And this tool does not imply or not affect the reporting processes established by the agreements, nor does it be an additional reporting obligation. So next slide. So how does this working space work? So here we have, for instance, national working space for Switzerland, which is built on the Informia server. Next. Within your national working space, you will find all national reports your country has submitted to an MEA, not only the biodiversity ones, but also all the reports, the Climate Convention, Minamata Convention, and so on. You will find all the strategic plans of the convention, of the global biodiversity-related conventions, and also of selected regional conventions. Next. 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 Okay, and directly imported from the CBD clearinghouse mechanism are the NBSAP that you submitted to CBD using their online reporting tool, as well as your CBD6 national report, are directly imported into the DART. Next. Next. Now, the idea on how the DART is working is that at the national level, you have different experts that include information, knowledge in terms of text snippets, indicators, links. You can upload whole files or images into DART. You tag them with your national strategy and action plans, your national targets, and this will allow, for instance, for invasive alien species, as all the targets of global strategic plans are interrelated, will allow to retrieve the information according to several strategic plans on which you have to report. Next. Next. Good. So this was just a brief overview in which to highlight the aim in which DART was developed. But now, how can the tool support your countries in develop early actions to implement the GBF? Next. So there are basically three functionalities which I would like to highlight. Next. The first one is the alignment of your existing NBSAP with the GBF. So this functionality within DART in the strategy section will allow you to compare your GBF, your existing national targets with the national targets, with the new GBF targets. A second functionality next is the dashboard. The dashboard is a place where all your information is stored in the DART. And next, the third functionalities are the compendia. These compendia are an online database providing knowledge resources that are published at the global level. So let's have a closer look at the alignment of the targets. Next. Next. So the alignment of the target is quite simple. It follows the logic that usually your national targets, existing national targets, are mapped to the Aichi target. Next. And if your target is mapped to the Aichi target, and then the Aichi target is mapped as decided and published by the CBD to the target of the GBF, then next, your national target might also be related to the new GBF target. This allows you to have a very rapid alignment. We did this in Switzerland and in China. Within 2 hours, you have an alignment of your present NBSAP to see if your national targets cover all the GBF or if you need to act thereon. Next. And next. The second thing I want to show you is this dashboard. So the interrelationship between the global strategic plans can be used to make the information retrievable from various perspectives. Next. So for instance, here you see on the left hand that we have a search according to GBF target 6, which is on invasive alien species. And if you search this target into your dashboard, you will find all the information which is tagged according to Aichi target 9, which is on invasive alien species, on Ramsar target 4, which is on invasive alien species, etc. So this makes very easy to retrieve information from the dashboard. Next. Next. And Finally, I would like to focus on the compendia. This is this database which includes a lot of information publications related to synergies among biodiversity-related conventions on how to capture, manage, and using biodiversity-related data, which will be very helpful also to promote the revision and especially the review of UNDSAP. And last but not least, it includes a whole set of global databases related to biodiversity, which can be very useful to obtain data on the state of the biodiversity in your country. So next, please. With this, I would like to stop the brief overview on DART. I cordially invite you to have a close look at our short videos, and please do not hesitate to contact us for further introduction into DART for a more in-depth presentation of the tool. Next. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention. Here you have the email addresses to contact the DART team. And with this, back to you, Cassandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric, and also for the effort to be connected today with us. I know that it's very late for you in Switzerland, but thank you so much. Or early, or I don't know where where we are now in the world, but I don't know if I can make also a question as a participant, if that's okay. It looks like a really great software, let's say a platform that participants can use. So what are the conditions to use DART, their costs, and if I need some help, if I need support, I have the option of having technical support, let's say, to use it. Sorry for the participants if I jump in as one participant. Eric, and then over to the rest for the questions.
Okay, thank you. So very brief. Yes, you can use the email addresses included in the presentation to contact us. And in the DART website, there is a contact formula. Please do not hesitate to contact us. There is technical support. There is the opportunity to organize a national webinar. There is an opportunity to organize workshops, and of course, always technical support on using the DART. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if you have any question, my colleague Eric is here, and also Diane is here. So please raise your hand or add your question in the chat. Remember that at the end, we will upload the document with the Q&A comments of the session in the webinar webpage. So you will have access to that information. So we have a question from Lauren Sampson. Thank you for your presentation, Eric. Has there been progress on the target tracking tool?
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. Yes, the target tracking tool is developed by our colleagues at UNEP WCMC. And there is also an idea to link the DART with the target tracking tool in order that the target tracker tool will not only take into account global data, global information to assess the progress of a country towards a GBF target, but that countries will also be able to submit information to the target tracker tool on their progress, on their activities, by using the DART. So that the DART will be the resource for countries to submit national information, national data on the implementation of GBF targets. And this information submitted by countries into the target tracking tool will help the tool to calculate, to highlight where progress has been made at the national level. Yes, so currently the tool is still being developed, and myself, I'm very much looking forward to learn about the most up-to-date progress in the development of this tool during SAPSTA in October this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So I don't know if there are more questions. Please remember that that's, I think, the most precious of these sessions that are alive, are not a YouTube video. Afterwards will be available for all of us, that all of the people who cannot join, but the ones who are online, please make the questions. Eric is connected online today, and all the experts, or leave your comments, questions in the chat, or raise your hand. So if there are no more now, we can jump to the next presentation, and I hope that in the Q&A session we can open a discussion with all of you. So we will have the next presentation, which is actually the last one, on NBSAP target assessment tool, who will be given by Leah Phillips. You already know her. She started with the first presentation. She's the senior biodiversity policy coordinator at UNDP. So over to you, Leah.
Great. Awesome. So glad to be connected again. And thank you to all the other speakers. It's been really interesting to learn about everything that's happening. And if there's not questions at the end, I certainly will have some questions, but hopefully you can all beat me to that. Okay, so this presentation is about a tool that UNDP is developing to help countries assess similarity between the GBF goals and targets and those already existing for biodiversity in your country. We'll take the next slide, please. So this is another pathway for assessing alignment in order to support eventually the development and revision/update of targets within NBSAPs. But to take us back a little bit, we'd like to talk about artificial intelligence, which provides a pathway to sift through large amounts of data and find patterns that can inform decision-making. But what if countries could use this technology to jumpstart processes around policy alignment? Well, at UNDP, we're exploring how AI can be harnessed to provide countries with a rapid assessment on similarity between national and global goals and targets. The results of this tool are country-level reports that can identify gaps between national and global targets and suggestions for enhanced similarity. These reports can be used to expedite target alignment processes, providing a starting point for rich stakeholder engagement. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So as many of us are aware, despite our best efforts, we're finding that action from the global community to conserve biodiversity is falling short. In 2020, the CBD Secretariat published the Global Biodiversity Outlook 5, which revealed that none of the Aichi biodiversity targets were fully met. This was due in part due to a lack of alignment between global and national targets. In fact, fewer than a quarter of national targets were found to be aligned with Aichi biodiversity targets. Other reasons for this lack of achievement were due to gaps in coordination, engagement, and buy-in from key stakeholders in nature impacting sectors, and a lack of financing for NBSAP alignment and implementation. Next slide. So at UNDP, we are developing the NBSAP Target Similarity Assessment Tool, which processes text from a country's national biodiversity targets found on the CBD database to compute similarity with the global goals and targets. The natural language processing model, which is an AI model, under this tool is called bidirectional encoder representations from transformers, or the BERT model. This model assesses cosine similarity or likeness between texts. We use this model because it takes into account synonyms and is pre-trained on examples. So to a degree, it can infer context. And this might surprise you, but many of you have used BERT before. If you've ever used Google search engine, it is the base for that and is created by Google. And as you can see in this graphic, we've attempted to show you what this work looks like. So BERT can assess the keywords in a GBF goal or target, which we have on the left. And then in the middle, we have the national biodiversity targets. And on the right, we have an example of an output. So as you can see, the output of the tool is a percentage of similarity, which we classify into high, medium, or low. In this example, you can see how we have a global target on left, and in the right side, you can see that there is higher similarity, medium similarity, and lower similarity. And the gray highlights similar words found in both the national biodiversity targets and target 7. So you can see how different words are picked up and different synonyms are picked up. We can go to the next slide now. So in addition to this BERT model, we are also exploring GPT 3.5, which is a large language model which can assess similarity. And we like it because it has a better understanding of the human language and has an ability to explain gaps in similarity. So as you can see here, the results are a bit different because it gives an output in the form of a paragraph, and it can pinpoint what might be missing in a given national biodiversity target. So as you can see in the middle example, it says, instead of just saying there's medium similarity, it's also able to say that the NBT could increase similarity through including actions to reduce pollution risks and negative impacts from all sources. Currently, we are actually undergoing a data validation process to decide which of these models might be the most effective and which we feel the most confident in. Okay, next slide. So here you can see our efforts up to this point and where we're going. So after working through tool conceptualization, data cleaning, and testing, we are now in the step of pilot testing this work with countries. And in October, we will develop the reports using R Markdown, and we'll release them by the end of the year. And then in early 2024, we will share the publication on global level patterns. We can go to the next slide. So we believe that this tool can have many different uses and potential applications. And in this context, we think that it can support governments in uncovering patterns and gaps in target alignment at the national level. It can provide fodder for conversation amongst stakeholders, leading to more dynamic and effective engagement, and enable stakeholders to convene around a more neutral starting point, providing an opportunity for less biased policy making. I think this is particularly useful as I've certainly spent a lot of time looking at targets, and after I spend too much time looking at them, it becomes really easy to say, oh, this is high, this is low, this is high. But it's so much more useful to have, or it's really helpful in this case, to have something to start with. So that way I'm not putting as much of my own bias in there. And then of course I can check that later and with other people. And then we also think it can expedite processes so that resources can be conserved for stakeholder engagement and BSAP implementation and other important processes. As noted before, one of the major gaps that countries found was that there was a lack of resources for implementation. And it would be really wonderful if countries were able to have more resources for that. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I just explained all the great things and why I'm really excited about this, but it's equally important to describe the limitations of this type of technology. So it can't provide definitive scoring of target alignment. Only countries can do that. In fact, you'll notice I've been referring to target similarity because that's what this does. It shows similarity between one target and another, but it doesn't take into account the whole context or national circumstances. And it's not going to be as accurate as your own review might be. Again, it can't make judgments about a country about which national biodiversity targets should be revised or updated, updated. This is why we really stress the importance of stakeholder engagement, because only you can do that. And then it also doesn't replace these processes around alignment or qualify CBD decisions. Finally, it's important to note that these reports, these national reports, will only be shared with country focal points to use at their discretion. So, you know, we won't share one report from one country with another. It's for your own use to determine how to use as you think best. Next slide. And here's a little outlay of what we're working with. So the report will include an overview of CBD guidance around target alignment with the GBF. Probably have links to many of decision 15.6, as I'm sure you're tired of me talking about. It will also include summary statistics that show similarity between every national biodiversity target for a country with every GBF goal and target. We think this could help give a nice overview of general similarity. Then I'll have a deep dive into each of the 4 goals and targets of the GBF and have an exploration of gaps, pathways to greater similarity, and then of course, we'll share with you the methodology. All right, if we can go to the next slide, this is an example of a heat map that could be included in reports. And so, for example, on this horizontal axis, you have all of the goals and targets of the Global Biodiversity Framework. On the vertical axis, we have all the national biodiversity targets. This is all example data. And so target pairs that you kind of see the boxes that have darker green, it represents something that might have higher similarity. And then the boxes that are white or lighter green have potentially less similarity. And given that countries are called upon to submit at least one national biodiversity target that aligns with each of the GBF goals and targets, a country could use this type of data to identify GBF goals and targets that potentially could require more attention during stakeholder engagement processes. Next slide. And then I also want to talk about a global level report that we are going to work on based on the results from this tool. So this data will describe, using summary statistics across all countries, it will indicate which GBF targets and goals appear to have strong footing within parties' national biodiversity targets. And then it can also show information on which GBF target and goals may require more focus, generally from the international community. Again, this won't show details about any specific country, but will more focus on a whole. And we think this could be really helpful to track progress as well. So in later next year, it might be a great opportunity to rerun this and see how has alignment changed over the last year. What areas and gaps still remain? All right, next slide. And so even though I could continue talking about this for quite some time, I think it's appropriate that we wrap it up here. I just wanted to note that we, again, are piloting this work. And so we are working with countries who are interested and sharing with them early national reports for them to review and provide feedback. And then based on that feedback, we will create the final reports. And we're hoping that, and then the countries who are pilots, of course, would still receive final updated reports based on the best data possible. And so we'll do a little interactive moment, but if there's any countries any participants who think this type of early data might be interested in pilot testing some of this work, we can do a little hand raise, I guess a virtual hand raise. I invite you to, I invite you to maybe we can do a thumbs up if your country would be interested. I also recognize that maybe you need to check. So that's why I've also shared my emails. Do you mind sharing the slide again? Sorry, Stephanie. Okay, great. So here's also my email. And so I invite everyone, if you're at all interested, to reach out and we can provide you with a draft report. And there will also be an option in the survey to also express if you're interested in this. All right, thank you everyone. This is really great talking, and we'll turn it back over to Cassandra.
Thank you very much, Leah, for this very interesting presentation and all of the presenters. So as Leah was saying, at the end of the session, we will have a survey where we are going to request your input on the session in general, the content, and also the content of the webinar series of these projects. So what do you want to be more reflected in the sessions? And particularly, as Leah was saying, we are going to ask if you are interested in serving as a pilot country for the target similarity assessment tool, which means that you will be among the first to receive reports on similarity between national and global targets and could provide feedback on the results. If your answer is yes, you will have there the option to specify the country, because if we have here some hand raising or a thumbs up, I'm not sure, for example, Bipin from which country is, or Edmund or the rest of participants, Mao, and so on. So thank you. If you can have a moment after the session to respond, the survey will be really appreciated. So we have a question from Lauren. This will be useful tool for tracking national and global targets. Pre and post evaluation are critical to assess progress accurately. Do reports have to be in a particular format for the assessment to be effective? For example, some documents will only be available in PDF formats. She's asking Leah.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And let me know if I'm not answering it correctly. But so with this tool, we are right now taking the targets that are currently available at the link that I'm sharing right now. So the CBD has a link that has all of the country's national targets who have submitted them. And so what we're doing is we're looking at these targets, and we can pull them in to the tool, and then we are assessing alignment with the global biodiversity framework targets. So countries do not have to submit anything to we already have the targets because they're readily available. When it comes to, but was the question more about, if the question was more about reporting though, I mean, there are separate processes for reporting that countries will undertake. I know that through the Annex 1 actually of decision, everyone's tired of me talking about this, but Annex 1 of decision 15.6 has the template for reporting, which will eventually be used by countries. I understand that countries will not be reporting on their targets, on the progress for their targets until much later. But yes, there is a consistent manner in which countries will be reporting, and you can find more information in this decision. I'm finding it right now, but also I'm interested in hearing if that answered your question. I'm not sure if it did.
Yes, and also I think, Leah, that the question goes in the sense of, as well, when you use the GPT, you can chat, right? And you copy and paste some paragraph. But in this case, it will be a kind of software where they can upload a national document in Word or PDF, and that will have an outcome. I think that also is this kind of operational question, more technical, let's say.
So what will happen is we already have the information from the target website on the CBD. And so we already have these targets. And so what we will do is it's not like a tool, like a web tool where somebody can plug it in. It's more somebody who is much better at data science than me works with the model in order to plug in all the information. And then the final result are these reports. And we will be sending these, we will send out more information about these reports, and then we will send them to the appropriate focal points later in this year. So,
Great.
and again, that, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
thank you for explaining.
Lauren, yeah, she's saying thank you for the interpretation. Yes, thank you, Lauren. And she's also saying that you already answered the question and only the Aichi targets or what has been submitted to the CBD, so no problem. And I think Christina Sapos wants to complement your answering Leah, and then I can jump into the next comment from Edmund that I think is from Myanmar. Yes, Christina.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you, Leah, for that great presentation. I wanted to make a few clarifications. So first, we are, as part of the Early Action Support Program, we're running the information and we will be sharing it with all the countries that we support, the GEF-eligible countries, as an example. Sorry, it's... Leah, can you take over for a minute? Sorry, my kids need to be in bed.
Yeah, no worries. I know the time zones are tricky. I'll let you get back on that. Yes, so, and I'm reading the comments. It definitely makes sense for countries to go back and determine how they would like to proceed. Again, I mean, I don't know if I can, could I share my screen?
Sure, but if you can, what about if I jump to the other comment that I have? Really, I have some comments in the chat. Chrissy's come back, so and then I can jump to the Edmund comment. Yes.
Great. So that's what I wanted to clarify, is that we're able to make this information available. One of the countries we've actually talked to is Malaysia about being a pilot country. So we will make it available to every GEF-eligible country that's supported in the project. Where there's interest, you're welcome to use it. Where there's not, you're not. But we think it's a useful tool to help jumpstart conversations among stakeholders about areas of alignment and additional gaps. We don't intend for it to be the answer to your Annex 1 problem or even to the target alignment question. It's just something to help guide the conversation and indicate where there are issues and where there are opportunities for better alignment. I think where the national focal point's aware and supportive, the government, all the better. But we will just, I think what Leah's suggesting is, like, if you want to get the information earlier and have it tailored to you by being a pilot, we can certainly arrange for those opportunities as well. We do think that it's just a useful starting place for conversations, recognizing that every country in the world is undertaking these assessments. You know, helpful to accelerate the conversation with this kind of computer programming where we can. I also wanted to mention that it is correct, Lauren, as you said, we ran this on the Aichi biodiversity targets. That's what's available on the CBD website. However, we do hope that we can, if you were to send us similar data, like in the format we need it, we can run it on any of the targets you have. We're also very hopeful that in 2024, we could look across multilateral environmental agreements so that we're not just looking at the Aichi biodiversity targets versus the global biodiversity targets, but you can take the national biodiversity targets in your country that are crosswalked to the GBF, and we could support you to do similar analyses across, you know, climate agreements or development plans that you have in your country, things of that nature. We're not there yet, but we're hoping that this foundation is enough that that can be the next step in 2024. Thank you. Sorry
Thank you very
much.
No, it's okay. Thank you very much, Christina. So I think that it's important also to clarify the question from Edmund, well, the comments from Edmund and Lauren, that they are saying that they cannot express that to be one of the pilot countries without having internal consultations and the arrangements that are needed. But this question is only to express the interest. It's not a commitment, so feel free to, when you respond the survey, to say, yes, I'm interested, but it's not a commitment. And then the technical team can contact you. For example, Lauren, if you click on interested and you put a country, or the same Edmund, you say yes, and you put Malaysia, Leah and Georgina will contact you to give you further information. And with that information in detail, you can do your internal arrangement. And then let's see if it is one of the pilot countries. And as Leah was explaining, all of the countries will have access to that. And Edmund is saying also additional that he will like to ask if the tool will be developed for use at respective countries level, because some subnational governments might want to use to do tracking and alignment against national targets. So that's a question. I don't know if Leah wants to answer, or Christina, whoever wants to jump in will be great.
I'll go for it. So yeah, so right now, what we're using right now, again, is what we have in this handy information from the CBD. But yes, we would love to find opportunities to cater this depending on the interests of the countries. So we've already programmed all the information. So all we would need is just any list of targets. You could give us a new list of targets from a national government, a subnational government. So we already have everything programmed. It would take our coding guy who has expertise in this work to run the analysis, but we could easily provide that to you. So we hope to be in communication with you, and again, all countries will receive some communications about this work, and we will have opportunities to explore these different pathways. It's really exciting to know that that could also be a potential application. So you're helping us think of new things.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, Chrissy, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer that you have Leah's email, and this is the first time we've actually publicly launched this opportunity. So we are hoping to make the early reports available at Substa. As Leah mentioned, we have a couple of countries that we're working with now and sharing, just draft information with them to help them tailor it, help us tailor the uses and applications. But we're learning about a lot of new ideas tonight. So if you're seeing this and you're thinking about a policy application that might be useful, please do follow up with us and let us know if you want to seek additional approvals or conversations. Please also let us know about that, and we can have presentations with you and your government as well. So thank you. We're really excited to have this great receipt of the idea, and we're looking forward to the many applications of it.
Thank you, Christina. So I don't know if there are more questions about the presentations that we have heard so far, are also about the CBD guidances on the DART, which was very interesting. So we have, yes, a question or comment. I don't know, I will read aloud. Grateful to have joined such a fruitful and informative presentations. Thank you, Terava, for that comment, and the multiple tools and platforms available that further expands my understanding in more depth and its relativity to on-ground works and existing conventions and targets, as well as the use of the artificial intelligence in producing early data to support national reports, but will need government of someone's agreement. Sure, Tereva, I think as also was saying our colleague Edmund from Malaysia, you can at the end of the session in the survey express your interest, and then the technical team can contact you and give you further information and whatever is needed for you to take the decision of being one of the pilot countries of using this artificial intelligence for this analysis. So I don't know if there are more questions for this policy analysis. Thank you, saying Edmund. Yes, the coding and modeling will be useful, as I am thinking, if we can integrate into the existing monitoring system under component 2 of the GBF early action support project, which is accurate, Edmund, totally. Yes, it is under that component. Great. There are a lot of questions, comments, not questions, and good reactions about the using of the artificial intelligence tool for a variety of policy analysis. That's really great. And yeah, we have some reactions too in the Zoom chat. That's new, right? To have these hearts in the comments, really great. So we have the hand raised. Yes, Tashi, please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tashi Doji, and I'm the Regional Technical Advisor working for UNDP based here in Bangkok. So thank you very much for this very useful tools, from UNDP as well as UNEP and the CBT. We found it very useful, and I hope here in the region, Asia Pacific, we support around 18 countries. UNDP is supporting this early action grant with 18 countries, and I see a few of the countries that have joined in this session. And I hope that more will come into, join the other session, which is, I guess, in the evening. So definitely, as already, alluded to by a few of the participants, that they would be interested. And I would see also that, I guess, in the next session, a few of the more countries will join, and then they would also like to be participating in this pilot. I think this will be very useful. So especially countries like Indonesia, then other countries in the region here, and if they could tap into this all the tools, excellent tools that have been shared today. So we expect our country office, through the UNDP country offices, together with the government counterparts, would be willing to at least pilot, right, some of these excellent tools. So I'm hoping that we could also sort of liaise with our country offices to encourage them to be part of this. So we may not have that sort of authority to really push, but at least encourage, right, country offices to at least reach out to government counterparts to be part of this pilot. So we really look forward to be participating in this piloting part of this the policy analysis, and also using the that tool of the UNEP. I see many of the countries in the region, Pakistan, India, Bhutan, have already subscribed to this DART tool. So we also have some more countries coming into this and utilizing the tool. So yeah, not a question, but I feel that this is a very useful session today. So thank you.
Thank you very much for this constructive comment, Tashi. Thank you, and I think that as you are saying, yes, it's worth to comment that we are going to do some publicity among all of you, the focal points of each of the countries. To participate as a pilot is not the only opportunity to register at the end in the survey. And I think that you and the other colleagues are really great ambassadors for doing the same, as you were commenting of many countries that you can also have the networking to comment about this. And remember that all of you will have access to this session in the recording and presentations, and you have our emails. If we can check the slide with the emails, please copy the emails and contact the technical team, or spread the word among your colleagues that are interested not only on participate in this artificial intelligence tool, also to learn more about the DART or the CBD guidance that we're explaining today, and the technical assistant. You already have the contact. sometimes we see that in a platform or guidance, but we don't know who is behind it. And today we had the opportunity to meet all the experts behind the tools and all the things that are useful for your policy analysis. So we have one last comment from E1. I hope that I'm pronouncing well. So he's saying good morning from Jakarta. Oh, great. We're having a lot of comments from Bangkok, Jakarta, Indonesia, Malaysia. Thank you very much for your participation. Very active session. So he's saying, sorry, I missed the joint discussion earlier. Don't worry, everyone. We will have a webinar webpage where you will have access to all the recordings and presentation. And there was an issue on automatic reminder in my Outlook. We'll be happy to receive a copy of the presentation. Yes, you will receive it. And I'm so sorry that you have that inconvenience. And you will receive all of you will receive the information in the webinar webpage that I will explain also at the end of this session. I think that with that, we are arriving at the end of this session. Thank you very much for your active participation. I want to thank you, all of you, representatives from government and country offices, for your time. I think Astasia and other colleagues that represents UN offices, thank you for being here. Before concluding this meeting, thank you, Tome, that is saying that was very helpful. Before concluding this session, I would like to express thanks to the GEF for providing the funds for this project, and our partners at UNEP, UNEP WCMC, and CBD for this joint effort in this GEF project. Many thanks in particular to Liam, Kieran, and Eric for giving this presentation today. In your screen, you can see their email. You can see the email of all the presenters. And also, I think we have there, yeah, Leah. Leah is also there, the email of Leah. Patrick, who will present tomorrow from UNEP, and he's also working in the organization, and Kieran and Eric. So for further discussion with the global team, you can contact them. Also, you can find all the sessions, recording, presentations, and the Q&A document on the webinar webpage. My colleague Alina, please, if you can drop again the link, especially for those who connect a bit later, to have the link of the webinar webpage. And also, if we can have the link for the past webinars, will be great. And Lauren, which is a very good question. The session have the same presentations. What we always do is to having sessions for different time zones. So today we are covering much of the Asian countries, and tomorrow we will cover Caribbean's countries that also speak English. On Wednesday, we are covering the Latin American one in the Spanish session. And then at the end, we will have on Thursday, our French session focused on African countries. So the presentations are the same. In some cases, the presenters are different because of the language, Lauren. So, but if you want to connect again, happy to be there. I'm from the Caribbean. I just have another meeting tomorrow. Oh, great, Lauren. But anyway, you can connect for any of the sessions. I have sometimes participants who wants to also practice the language of the session. So also you can find the recordings of the past sessions in the link that Alina shared. And then also she will share again the link of this session in particular. And the upcoming webinar 6 will guide parties on how to develop monitoring action plan and identifying national data monitoring system needs, and will be held during the month of November. So we will send you information shortly by email. And in addition, a part of our team will attend the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice. For those who doesn't know the acronym of SAPSTA, the SAPSTA 25 in Nairobi, and will be there from the 13th through the 19th of October. You can reach out to Marion Marigo. Most of you already know her, and also Georgina de Moya, our technical support, who is one by one with the countries in the daily life for this project. So you can find them between the two plenary rooms down the stairs at the Early Action Support Help Desk that will be hosted from the 15th through the 19th of November. You will also shortly receive an invitation to attend an Early Action Support reception on Monday, 16 October at 6 p.m. I guess that is Nairobi time. More information will be communicated shortly. I will send you further information by email soon about the upcoming sessions or the other capacity building offerings that we have. And finally, at the end of the session, as I said before, you will receive a quick survey. Please take 1 minute to answer, and is really appreciate your feedback to continue offering good quality of webinars as the capacity building deliverables of this project. And also to know the interest. It's not a commitment yet, but it's an interest of if you want to receive further information to be one of the pilot countries of this artificial intelligence tool to the policy alignment that our team already explained. So I think that I talk a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So I hope that you can join the next session. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, and see you in the next opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you, our colleague from Bangkok, for your last message. Thank you.